My sister stood in the middle of the living room, red-faced and shaking, screaming, "You ruined my life, Lena." My parents didn't defend me. They looked at me, like they agreed. So that night, I quietly walked out the door. No suitcase, no goodbye. This morning, 14 missed calls from my mom. And a single text from my dad. "It's Sophie. Something happened." Before we begin, if you've ever been blamed for something you didn't do, especially by your own family, subscribe to their family stories. Like this video, and share your story in the comments. Someone out there needs to know they're not alone. I was the firstborn, the quiet one, the one who always colored inside the lines. By the time I was 7, I was already folding laundry without being asked. By 9, I was watching Sophie while our parents worked overtime. By 12, I knew how to make dinner, clean the bathroom, and never complain. Because if I did complain, it was always the same answer. "Lena, be the mature one. Your sister's still learning. You're stronger than her. You can handle it." I don't remember when I stopped being a child. But I do remember the first time I realized my silence didn't earn me love. It earned me invisibility. It was Sophie's 13th birthday. She wanted a violin. We couldn't afford it, but they got it anyway. That same month, I asked for a used sketchpad from a local art store. My dad said, "Your school provides paper. Be grateful." So, I stopped asking. I stopped needing. Or, I learned to act like I didn't. My world became smaller. School, part-time jobs, sketching on scrap paper. I stayed out of trouble. I got good grades. I won small contests that no one in the house cared to attend. Meanwhile, Sophie was a whirlwind. Broken rules, slammed doors, loud music, boys climbing out her window at midnight. And every single time, my parents made excuses. "She's just going through a phase. She's sensitive. You don't understand. You've always had it together." I was so used to the background. I didn't even notice when they stopped asking if I was okay. Until the night I left, I don't think they ever had. Even when I got the scholarship for architecture. Even when I won the City Design Award. Even when I gave up my spot at an internship in Italy to help pay for Sophie's therapy. Not once did they say thank you. But I didn't do it for praise. I did it because I thought that's what love was. Love meant sacrifice. Love meant being quiet. Love meant letting someone else scream while you swallowed every word. It was always Sophie. When she dyed her hair neon pink right before our cousin's wedding, everyone laughed and said she was expressing herself. When I wore a navy blue dress instead of the floral one Mom picked, she called me ungrateful and whispered about it to Aunt Marie. When Sophie failed 2 classes her freshman year, Dad said the teachers didn't understand her. When I got a B+ in calculus, he raised an eyebrow and asked if I was slipping. But the favoritism wasn't loud. It was quiet, subtle, 1,000 tiny cuts that never bled enough for anyone to notice, except me. One Christmas, I remember wrapping the gifts myself. I bought Mom a scarf, Dad a coffee grinder, Sophie a charm bracelet. Sophie gave no one anything. She woke up late, grunted, "Merry Christmas," and disappeared with her boyfriend by noon. But when she came back that evening, giggling and buzzed, Dad gave her his last piece of chocolate pie. I asked if I could have it earlier. He said, "Let her enjoy something for once. You always get what you want." I didn't. I never did. At school, I was known as the reliable one. Teachers liked me. Friends leaned on me. At home, I was the invisible hinge that kept the doors from falling off, until they slammed in my face. I'd sit on the couch sometimes and watch Mom brush Sophie's hair. Stroke her cheek. Call her, my baby. When was the last time she touched me like that? I couldn't remember. I told myself it didn't matter. That I didn't need it. That some of us are just born to carry more. But I was tired. The worst part was, I didn't hate Sophie. She wasn't cruel, just entitled. She cried easily, made messes, apologized sweetly, and forgot everything the next day. I was the broom that followed her around, cleaning what she didn't even remember she spilled. One night, I came home from class and heard Sophie crying in her room. She'd broken up with some boy. Again. Mom was in there, soothing her, promising they'd buy her something nice this weekend. I walked past, quietly, holding my backpack full of drafting materials and aching shoulders. Not a word. Not even, "How was your day?" That same week, I paid the electric bill. They were short that month. Dad was laid off again. Sophie had taken out a credit card and maxed it on makeup and shoes. I used part of my scholarship money. Didn't say a thing. When Mom noticed the lights still worked, she said, "Must have been a delay in the payment." No one asked. No one thanked. I was just there. Like wallpaper, always in the background, always peeling at the corners. But no one cared unless it ruined the picture. I started saving in secret. Not just money, but strength. I had a notebook where I'd write things I wanted to say. Things like, "I'm not a robot. I'm tired of always being the strong one. I deserve to be seen." But I never said them. Until the night Sophie screamed. And everything finally broke. It was my father's birthday. We were all gathered in the living room, Sophie, still dressed like she was going to a concert, sprawled across the armchair, my mother fussing with the cake that came from a store. Not a kitchen, and Dad, flipping through a new set of tools I bought with my part-time paycheck. No one asked how I afforded them. No one cared that I had skipped lunch all week to do it. Then came the sound. A car door slamming outside. Too hard. Fast footsteps on the porch. Sophie's boyfriend, Jeremy, bursting into the house red-faced and loud. They started arguing before he even made it past the doorway. I remember standing in the kitchen, holding a tray of glasses, frozen as their voices climbed. "You told me you weren't gonna tell them," Jeremy shouted. Sophie snapped back. "Because you're a liar. You used my card." My parents were trying to calm them down. But the air was thick, tense, like a stretched-out wire ready to snap. Then, just like that, they were gone again, slamming the door, tires screeching off the gravel driveway. We didn't even get to sing happy birthday. Hours passed. Around midnight, the phone rang. Dad answered. His face went pale. He hung up, looked at me, then said, "Sophie crashed the car. She's fine." The car isn't. Jeremy was fine, too. Drunk, but fine. The police said it was her fault. Jeremy said they'd been fighting. My mother cried. My father paced. Then Sophie walked in, hair messy, mascara streaked, and fell apart right there in the entryway. "I can't take this anymore," she screamed, voice trembling. "I'm not perfect like Lena. I try so hard, but she's always there, being better than me, making me look like garbage." No one interrupted her. She turned to them, voice shrill, arms flailing, and wailed. "You pushed me to be like her. She ruined my life. You all did." Silence. The kind that swallows everything. I waited for my mother to say, "That's not fair." For Dad to stand up and remind her I was the one who had always been helping. But they didn't. Dad said, "She's been under a lot of pressure. Lena, maybe we've all been too hard on her." Mom whispered, "Maybe if you were warmer with her, she wouldn't feel so alone." I stood there, the glasses still in my hand, trembling now. Their words hit harder than anything Sophie had said. Me? Warmer? After everything? I left the room, slowly, quietly, like always. But this time, I didn't go cry in my bedroom or write in my notebook. I packed a bag. Just a few things. My laptop, some clothes, my sketchbook. No note. When I opened the front door, the cold air hit my face like truth. I didn't slam it, didn't make a sound. I simply stepped into the night, and left. I didn't have a plan. Just enough in my bank account for a deposit and first month's rent on a small room I found online. Shared kitchen, creaky floors, neighbors who smoked too much, but it was mine. That first night, I lay on a mattress on the floor and stared at the ceiling for hours. Not crying, not panicking, just breathing. No one called. Not that day, not the next. Not even a message asking if I'd made it somewhere safe. It hurt more than I thought it would. But the silence also did something else. It gave me space. Real, uninterrupted space to hear my own thoughts. For the first time, I didn't have to keep my phone nearby in case Mom needed groceries. Or cancel plans because Sophie had another meltdown. Or smile politely when dad praised her for remembering to do the dishes once a month. I started working small freelance jobs, logo designs, building mock-ups for local clients. I picked up shifts at a bookstore down the street. I even joined a weekend sketch group in the park. No one knew me as Sophie's sister. I was just Lena, and slowly, that began to feel like enough. 2 months passed. Then 3. The dreams started fading. Those ones where I was back in that house, begging to be understood. I stopped waiting for birthdays and holidays to sting. I stopped checking their social media. I stopped asking, why? One afternoon, I got an email from an architecture firm in Chicago. They'd seen my portfolio online. Said they had an internship slot that just opened up. Paid. Remote start. The kind of thing I would have celebrated with my parents. But I just stared at the screen and smiled to myself. Freedom didn't come all at once. It came in sips. In quiet mornings. In laughter with new friends. In walking down a street and realizing I didn't have to rush home because someone was waiting with a list of things they needed from me. Then came this morning. I'd just made coffee. The light from the window hit my desk perfectly. I was about to sit down to sketch when I saw my phone. 14 missed calls from mom. 2 voicemails. A message from dad. Just 1 sentence. Please call. It's Sophie. Something happened. My hand didn't tremble. My heart didn't race. I just stared at the screen. As still as stone. Because in all those months of silence, I'd healed enough to know something I never did before. Their emergencies were no longer my responsibility. But part of me, some soft, worn part, still felt the weight of that name. Sophie. I didn't block the number. I didn't call back either. Instead, I opened my sketchbook, turned to a blank page, and waited. I waited 2 days. Didn't reply. Didn't pick up. Just watched the calls keep coming. No one had called me that many times in years. Not when I got that City Design Award. Not when I left. Not on my birthday. And now, suddenly, I was important again. The second voicemail came from Dad. His voice was strained, like he'd been holding back tears or anger or both. Lena, I know you don't want to hear from us. But your sister's not well. Please, just call. She's asking for you. That part stopped me. She's asking for you. It rattled around in my chest like loose change. Not an apology. Not an admission. But something cracked open inside me anyway. I didn't call. But I sent a text. What happened? An hour passed. Then another. Finally, Mom replied. Sophie's in the hospital. Panic attack. She hasn't spoken to anyone but keeps saying your name. And then, we didn't realize how much she was hurting. She said, she felt like she could never catch up to you. Like she was always failing you. I didn't reply. I put my phone down and went for a walk. The air was cool, the kind that fills your lungs like forgiveness. I sat on a bench outside the bookstore, hands in my lap, watching the wind stir the leaves. I thought about Sophie, all her chaos, her tears, her tantrums. What if she hadn't been the favorite? What if she'd been just as lost as I was, but louder about it? We were raised in the same house. But maybe we lived in different rooms of the same pain. Maybe I was the quiet survivor. And she was just the one who screamed. Later that night, I called. Not them, her. She answered immediately. Her voice was hoarse. Lena? I didn't speak. She started crying. Not loud, not dramatic. Just this soft, cracking sound that made my throat tighten. I didn't mean it, she said. I was angry. I was scared. I was always scared. I let the silence settle between us. Then, I said what I hadn't said in years. I know. She cried harder. Said she didn't deserve my forgiveness. Said she hated me because she wanted to be me. Said she didn't know how to stop messing things up. And I told her something true. You don't need to be me. You never did. You just needed someone to see you. She sobbed. And I sat there, calm, holding the phone against my cheek like it weighed nothing and everything all at once. When the call ended, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt free. Because I hadn't called to fix anything. I hadn't returned to patch up what was broken. I'd simply stood in the wreckage and refused to carry it anymore. The next day, my parents called again. I didn't answer. They left another message, this time from Mom. We just want to talk. We know we made mistakes. Sophie told us everything. Everything. That word did something to me. For years, I thought no one saw me because I wasn't loud enough. I thought if I stayed kind, stayed helpful, stayed good, they'd notice. But the truth was, they'd only ever looked where it hurt the loudest. And now that Sophie had screamed loud enough to scare them, they finally looked. But I didn't need their explanation. I didn't need them to sit me down and tell me they were wrong. I already knew. So I went to the post office and mailed a small box. Inside was a copy of my internship letter. The one from Chicago. I slipped it into an envelope with a short note. This is where I'll be in a month. I'm doing fine. I hope she will be too. No return address. No invitation to follow. I went home, made tea, opened my laptop, and submitted the final paperwork for the move. And for the first time in my life, I didn't second guess what I was walking into, only what I'd walked away from. That night, I didn't dream of home. I dreamed of tall buildings and cold wind and morning trains and a studio filled with drafts and models and quiet. A quiet I chose. A week later, I passed by a cafe on my street and saw a mother brushing her daughter's hair at a patio table. The girl looked tired, like she'd been crying, but the mother just kept brushing. Soft and slow, like it was the only thing she knew how to do. I stood there for a moment, watching them, and I let myself ache. Just a little. Then I kept walking. The following Sunday, I got a letter. Not from my parents, Sophie. Handwritten. 3 pages. Neat handwriting. Smudged in places. She told me she was in therapy. That she wasn't drinking. That she moved back home because she couldn't afford rent. But that she was trying to be better. Not perfect. Just better. At the end, she wrote, "You're the only person I ever wanted to be honest with. But I was too ashamed. I used to hate that you were always right. But now, I hope I can learn to be quiet like you. Not silent, just steady." I read it 3 times. Then I tucked it into the back of my sketchbook. Didn't frame it, didn't share it, just let it sit there. A small, folded thing that didn't change the past but somehow made the present feel softer. No one else apologized. But they didn't need to. Because I had already decided, I wasn't going back. Not for holidays. Not for family dinners. Not for memories. I would send postcards. Maybe. Answer the occasional message. Call when I had the energy. But I had no interest in reopening old wounds just to prove they'd scarred. Sometimes, peace doesn't look like reconciliation. Sometimes, it looks like an unanswered phone call. A hot cup of tea. And a quiet evening with the window open. The morning I left for Chicago. The sky was pale and clean. The way it gets just before summer figures out it's turning into fall. I had 1 suitcase, a backpack, and a sketchpad under my arm. My room looked empty, but not hollow, like it had served its purpose. I stood by the window for a while, looking out at the courtyard. A little boy was chasing bubbles while his grandmother sat on the bench with a thermos in her hand. She wasn't calling out to him. Just watching, quiet and full. There was something in that silence I understood. I didn't tell my parents I was leaving that morning. Didn't text Sophie either. But I had written one final letter, just for myself. I folded it neatly, tucked it into the last page of my sketchbook, and zipped it shut. On the train, the city rose up like a promise. Glass and metal, steel bones and sunlight slipping between buildings. It was loud, and full, and new, but I wasn't afraid. I found my apartment key in my coat pocket and held it tightly. Like it meant something more than a door. The studio was small but full of light. A drafting table by the window. A kettle in the corner. Bare walls waiting to be filled. I unpacked slowly. Hung one photo, an old one of me as a little girl. Standing by a swing set with my hand outstretched. No one else in the frame. Just me, and that swing, and the way I was reaching for something just out of the shot. That image stayed with me. Not because of what it said about loneliness, but because of what it said about hope. Later that evening, I made tea, opened the window, and sat in the chair with my feet tucked beneath me. The phone buzzed once. Sophie again. Just a message. Thinking of you today. I hope you're happy. I smiled. Not because it made anything whole. But because it didn't try to. I didn't reply right away. I let the moment stretch. Let the breeze move the edge of the curtain. Let the tea cool in my hands. And then, when the sun dipped behind the skyline and left everything golden and still, I closed the window. No bitterness. No blame. Just quiet. The kind you earn. The kind you choose. The kind that feels like freedom. At last.